oil double standards of the United States. It's nothing but gunboat diplomacy at center stage. What's this about? Let's talk about USA. Let's just drop the diplomacy for now, because this is raw power politics. When America wants oil, it sends force. When India buys oil, it gets tariffs, threats and sermons, like most countries across the world. Well, on Saturday, United States forces carried out a large-scale strike. What they called was unprecedented since the World War II on Venezuela, capturing its president, Nicolas Maduro. Why Venezuela? It is home to the largest oil reserves on earth. For years, it has been under US sanctions, crippling its economy and oil exports. For weeks, United States President Donald Trump and his officials have been saying that its military posturing against Venezuela is aimed at countering the flow of narcotics or narco-terrorism. As now, the Venezuelan president has been indicted of, and he is at a New York court as we speak. But now, in Trump's own words, in the aftermath of abduction of President Nicolas Maduro, suggests that Washington's true interest lies in Venezuela's vast proven oil reserves. Trump has declared that America will now run Venezuela until a so-called transition. And then comes the money line. US oil companies will rebuild and make money. Not elections first, not institutions first, oil companies first. Venezuela has called it military aggression, declared a national emergency and rejected the removal outright. But then, this USA move is not new. Iraq, Libya, Venezuela, Iran, time and again, oil-rich nations outside the United States' sphere of influence have faced sanctions, regime pressure, military intervention, or economic isolation. The message has been implicit, sometimes explicit. Energy security for America is non-negotiable. And this comes just months after a tariff tirade by Donald Trump against nations for buying oil from countries he doesn't approve, or for imposing taxes on United States he thinks is unproportionally high. India imports over 85% of its crude oil. To protect its economy and citizens, India buys oil from where it is cheaper, Russia, the Middle East, anywhere that the market allows, and is in the best interest, the national interest of the country. Well, like many nations, the United States has tried arm twisting with tariff threats, sanction pressures, moral lectures. So here's a question the world cannot dodge. Which part of international law allows one country to remove another country's president and say, we will run you now? This is not just about Venezuela. This is the world order cracking. In fact, a new world order emerging. Well, I have got guests with me, but before that, a quick breaking that's coming in at this point. The United Nations has raised serious concerns over the growing crisis in Venezuela following the United States capture of President Nicolas Maduro. United Nations Secretary General has warned that the development could intensify instability with Venezuela and have wider consequences for the region. Speaking to the United Nations Security Council in New York,
potential impact on the region.
Secretary General has said he's deeply concerned about the potential fallout and the precedent such actions could set for relations between nations. The comments come just hours before Maduro was scheduled to appear in a Manhattan federal court on US drug-related charges, which he has strongly denied. In fact, the United Nations Secretary General has also questioned the legality of the US operation carried out in Caracas, saying it may not have respected international law, calling for restraint. The United Nations chief urged all Venezuelan stakeholders to engage in inclusive and democratic dialogue and said the United Nations stands ready to support a peaceful path forward for the country. And I'm being joined at this point by Ambassador Jayant Das Gupta, former ambassador to WTO, Manish Chand, who is the CEO for Center for Global India Insights. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me. Ambassador, straight to you first. I mean, look at the three things that are happening. One, what the United States has done with Venezuela. Two, this comes just months after the tariff tirade against several countries, including India? And three, what's happening at the United Nations Security Council? Can the three be separated? Can the three be seen as separate, distinct identities? Can the tariff tirade be seen isolated, separate from what's happened in Venezuela?
I think there is a connection at a non-visible level because ultimately the US is concerned about two or three very important developments happening in other parts of the world. One is de-dollarization. The US runs a very sizable trade deficit. It keeps printing money, and this can also be traced to the 1974 agreement between countries led by Saudi Arabia and Henry Kissinger, then Secretary of State, which said that the oil prices will henceforth only be denominated, the OPEC oil prices will be denominated only in dollars and traded in dollars. Now, that led to the US being secure in printing more and more dollars, and the rest of the world, in a sense, paying for the US dollars and putting their uh, earnings in US dollars back into the US in the case of many countries in US securities. So the US constantly kept running up a deficit and merrily spending more than what it earned. Now, this has led to a situation where the US debt is much more than its GDP and it is reaching unsustainable levels. And one of the things which the US would like to have is to maintain the dollar's predominant position as the currency which determines global trade flows. The Venezuelans, for instance, had entered into a contract very recently for $18 billion of oil supply to China. The Libyans, many decades ago, had talked about floating a golden dinar for Africa, which would act as the currency for trade in oil. Similarly, Iraq also had threatened to, Saddam Hussein had threatened to start trading in non dollar currencies. Now, these are all, in a sense, related, as experts are showing. And in the case of the US, many of its refineries are dependent on heavy crude, whereas the US shale, which is being produced in the US, is light crude, which cannot be refined by these refineries. So, in order to get benefits from the investments, huge investments which have been made in the US refining sector, they need heavy crude, and that heavy crude comes from Venezuela and Canada to a great extent. So these, and mind you, President Trump has also, I think, reiterated the threat to Mexico and Cuba. And Canada has not exactly been receiving friendly vibes from the Americans of late. So it is all related. It is basically about energy security, about running its own refineries dependent on heavy crude from Venezuela, and it is and the kind of threats that are uh, being issued
Okay,
to other countries, Mexico. So
right.
I think it is all of a piece.
Manish Chand, it's all of a piece. I mean, look at the visuals that we are playing out on our screens that the world is really looking at. You have Maduro, being arrested. He's handcuffed. He's being taken to the New York court. He's being arrested and escorted by the U.S. servicemen, as it were. These are scenes that several generations have not seen. These are scenes that, the might that was flexed by United States was unprecedented since World War II, something that Trump himself claims. What does Trump politics really mean at this time? Forget about democracy. This seems to be torpedoing all international international laws.
Yes, so what we are seeing right now is the return of imperialism with a vengeance, you know. The return of might is right. The naked use of force. If you look at it, this is like totally unacceptable. The international public humiliation of a leader of a country. Now you may question, whatever else. You know, we've known the history where U.S. Has patronized any number of dictators, but it's like, you know, whether it's U.S. dictator or it's somebody U.S. doesn't like. And there's a whole history of this. You know, in Iraq's case, they concocted weapons of mass destruction to get rid of Saddam Hussein. Of course, it is not the similar situation, but what we are seeing now is a brutal unilateralism, brazen unilateralism, use of force to alter. What we are seeing is not rules-based international order. I would consider it the death of international rules-based international order. It is a new world disorder, in a manner of speaking, and where force
Manish
and
Chand, while
coercion
you're
sets
saying
in.
this thing, I mean, let me just bring this other aspect in as well. Look at
Right,
countries that have faced the tariffs. I mean, look at
right.
India for that matter. America was not just upset that India was not importing as much as America wanted. America was upset that we were importing so much from other countries, including Russia. And you have this mocking way of Donald Trump speaking for what should be a very diplomatic move. And then
Right.
you have an outright brute use of force. Again, for oil, this seems to be just, you know, how do you explain this in the international scenario? This just seems to be beyond double standards. There's no standards.
Yeah, they were right. I mean, basically, this is Trump's style of functioning. Either you're with me or against me. He's reminiscent of that kind of logic. And you look at everyone, the way he has been victimizing countries left, right, and center with impossible onerous tariffs and the glib manner in which he speaks, you know. For example, the latest clip we saw today where he said that, India stopped buying or India is cutting down on buying Russian oil because Mr. Modi wants to make me happy. I mean, where a diplomatic nicety is involved here. So it is basically ruled by, you know, its hubris is saying that either you fall in line or you suffer. That's exactly the message he has sent via this very vivid sort of demonstration of force. It was not just Venezuela, which he has in sight. It is, he has threatened Cuba, he has threatened Mexico. In fact, it's a message to the entire world, you know, that those countries or those who defy the United States will not get away, will not be allowed to go unpunished. So, I mean, what do you call this? I mean, we are in a world, where, to use the old-fashioned analogy, I mean, where
Right.
might is right, you know. So, I mean, if America is the most powerful country economically, militarily, it want to impose, and as Ambassador Jain was saying, you know, it's about energy security, but is this the way to do oil grab? I mean, US refineries may want heavy crude. So you go and, seize another country, you know, you capture it by force, their leader. So this is like resource nationalism
Right.
uh, going to the other extreme. I don't know where it's going to end. And it has sent definitely a very wrong precedent.
You're right. It's
And
going
where
to be
it's going
hard
to
to say
go
where
from
this is
here, we
going to
don't know.
end because at the end of the day, right now, even as we are speaking, there's a lot happening in United States itself. There's a New York court where the president has been produced, Venezuelan president has been produced for charges for, and he has been indicted already for narco-terrorism, as it were. You have UNSC, which obviously Donald Trump in the past has completely demolished in his own style, trying to make a statement for what he has done against Venezuela. But thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. We're totally out of time. Ambassador Jayan Das Gupta, thank you very much. Manish Chand, thank you very much.